This is I Pierce the Toast. I'm Sean.
And I'm AJ. Let's make some toast.
Welcome back to I Pierce the Toast.
Hey, Toasticles, how's it going? And again, we're gonna just lay into Sean really quick. I know you guys are with me on this one. Why the fuck do you keep calling it I Pierce the Toast? It's IPTT.
AJ, there is a long line of men in my family calling it IPTT. It goes all the way back to the days of the potato famine, where my father and his father before him and his father before him called it IPTT, and I hope you're having a pleasant nap. So I think that leads right into our discussion today. And what are we discussing today, AJ?
We're talking about nepotism in Hollywood.
I believe it's pronounced nepotism.
I think it's nepotism, but you know that's fine with you.
Nepotism?
Nepotism. So nepotism, for you guys that don't understand, it basically just has to do with power, influence, or positions that you can gain just because you have a familial or family tie to something. And in this case, it's Hollywood, which is actually pretty prevalent.
I'd say it's almost too prevalent in Hollywood. Like, yeah. We see this everywhere. I mean, I don't know about you. I've literally been in jobs where everybody seems to have there only seems to be about 5 last names running around the building. Yeah. Right. So it's definitely seen everywhere. But with Hollywood, it just seems, sometimes when I think about, what if instead of going to the military, I had decided to try to continue that high school passion I had for performance and gone into that, I will remind myself, like, I don't know anybody in the industry. And, they always say it's about who you know, but really I think it's more about who you are related to.
Exactly. I think the biggest thing that comes into it is we have these dynasties, it seems, of these families. You have the Sheens, like Charlie Sheen, Martin Sheen, and then you have Emilio Estevez, who's a part of that, who changed his name so he didn't fall within the nepotism part of it.
And we see how well that worked out for him.
Exactly. You have the Baldwins, the Skarsgards, all these different families that are just built up, and it's just long lines of these people that seem to just propagate this career and it ends up being a fortune in this industry. And that leads me into my first question. Is it fair to the other artists in the fields to have these dynasties or just the nepotism in general?
I don't know about fairness. So, God, that's a tough question. That is a great opening question. Man, you're going to come right out of the gate and kick me right in the nuts. It's a tough question because when we talk about fairness, and this is something you see no matter what topic we're talking about, on whether there are privileges or advantages that might be inherent based off a certain systemic issue within a particular nation. And I think that question has to be almost met with an additional question is, how do we determine when it's been awarded based off of that nepotism versus the person genuinely was the best person for the job? Using Nick Cage. I think that this is an example that both of us came up with and both of us think about, because Nicolas Cage is the nephew of Francis Ford Coppola, who was a producer?
I think he was a director.
Director, thank you. Yeah, director. I'm sorry, you're right, director.
Yeah, because Nicolas Cage even debuted as Nicolas Coppola.
Yes, and after a while, he said that he didn't want to be associated with any anymore. He wanted to become a performer in his own right. But was he ever really going to be able to separate himself from his relation to, Francis Ford Coppola?
No, they were like, that's Frank's nephew.
Yes, Frank's nephew. And we, as the viewers, might have, forgotten about this, or it may have, kind of fallen out of our memory, but the people in the industry didn't forget. They knew who Frank's was. When Nick Cage came in and auditioned for something, there was definitely going to be those whispers in the room of, well, that's Frank's nephew, so if
you want to make it big, you should probably
if you ever want to work with Frank again, or if you ever want to be in a Frank Coppola film again, you better fucking cast him. So that begs the question, kind of what you're talking about. Is it fair to the other artists? Well, I then pose again that secondary question: was Nick Cage the best person for Face Off, or was it possible that we could have had a better performance out of somebody else?
I mean, I really don't know, because whenever I watched Nicolas Cage as Castor Troy in Face Off, I couldn't imagine anybody else doing it. But I mean, I'm not going to say that the nepotism discounts his ability to act. I'm not going to say that at all.
No, of course not. I don't think, and it never does. No, we can honestly say if a person has genuine talent, the nepotism isn't discounting their abilities. But the question really isn't, is the nepotism discounting their abilities?
Paris Hilton.
It's that, again, she didn't have any abilities. So it's not that,
I mean, that's the thing, though, is like, it's still, whenever we're talking about the abilities of the person, if I'm watching a film, could I see someone else in that role?
And
she's
that's
not
the
good.
question. That's the question is, could someone have done it better? And with Paris Hilton, let's be honest, the answer is a resounding yes.
I don't know, because of Repo the Genetic Opera, I couldn't see anybody else playing that character.
That is such a good... You know what? You're not wrong, because she's literally playing the image that people had of her at the time. Because I don't want to discount Paris. I don't know if you've seen her recently. Now, again, she is a Nepo baby. She is a wealthy person in the United States. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to blow smoke up her ass, because God knows she's got plenty of problems and, plenty of issues that she's had in the past. But I will say she seems to have become a somewhat better person over the last decade. Yeah. She's definitely embraced some great charities. She's trying to do some important work in a more respectable, I guess, for lack of a better term, avenue. But there was a time when she wasn't. There was a time when she was nothing more than the privileged party girl who got, film roles and a television show simply for being someone that was the daughter of a famous billionaire.
Exactly.
But you are right. In Repo the Genetic Opera, it made sense for her to be cast in that, because she's literally being cast as the image we had of her at the time. The rich, whiny girl of the wealthy guy who literally has no business, performing in a show like what she does later when she tries to, be part of the Genetic Opera. Someone who has no business being in this, but is getting this opportunity anyway simply because of who she is. So you're right. I mean, even though somebody probably could have played the role better, it was a fun comparison of her in the role. But when we talk about House of Wax, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, look at people like Maud Apatow. Maud Apatow is now becoming a very prominent actor, but she's even made mention of herself in some interviews that she is a Nepo baby, and she's hoping that her career will be her career, not just because her dad is Judd Apatow. So she acknowledges the fact that she got where she is because of that.
Now, that brings me to a question that I wrote down based off of this conversation. Do we, as an audience, do we have any culpability in this? I don't know about you, but, when you find out that somebody's daughter or son, and I'm going to use daughter or son because obviously brother is brothers, sisters, it's like it's whatever.
That's not true. That does play into it later.
You're not wrong, okay? Because I'm actually going to use an example. I literally did this yesterday. Do you obviously know who John Krasinski is?
Yeah.
Did you know that he is brother-in-laws with Stanley Tucci?
I did not know that.
I didn't either. I found out, I was just reading an article where it talked about, I don't even know what it was talking about. I think it was just one of those stupid clickbaity articles where it talks about like famous people and how nice they are to people in restaurants. But it noted that Stanley Tucci was married to Emily Blunt's sister, and I was like, holy fuck, that means he's John Krasinski's brother-in-law. What a fun thing. And here I am. I'm part of the Nepo problem right there. Now, granted, this is more just kind of a marriage thing. Yeah. But here I am going, well, isn't it just interesting that John Krasinski and Stanley Tucci are brothers-in-law? Isn't that just fun? And the same thing with when I found out, what is his name from The Animal? And
Rob Schneider?
Rob Schneider.
Oh, his daughter's Elle King?
His daughter's a singer, right?
Yeah.
You find that out and you're like, well, isn't that fun and interesting? What a talented family. Are we not part of the problem? Do we not kind of almost sometimes crave, the progeny of our famous idols and want to see what their progeny can produce for us as the Roman masters in their frickin' their high perches, demanding that we be entertained. Are we not part of that problem?
I think we truly are, because I mean, look at like Lenny Kravitz. His is so storied. He is, first of all, Al Roker's cousin.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Holy shit! I didn't know that.
The former husband of Lisa Bonet, which means that he would, I guess, if they got. No, I guess he really wouldn't have that much of a familial tie to Jason Momoa. But he's Zoe Kravitz's father, and he's also the daughter of Roxy Roker, who was Helen on the Jeffersons. So, shit. So you have this whole circle that just is like, wow, that's a whole thing. And it's like, did it really start with Roxy? Did Roxy get Lenny to where he was, which in turn got Zoe to where she got? Or did Roxy's fame also help out her cousin, Al Roker, and then help Lenny and help Zoe? It's like, it's this whole thing.
See, and I'm even right here listening to you just tell me this, all these familial connections, and geeking out like, oh, well, isn't that fun? Well, Al Roker, how about that? We're part of the problem. Yeah. We crave it. We love it. We love hearing about these familial connections that we either knew about or didn't know about, or hearing that that Ron Howard's daughter, Dallas Bryce Howard.
It's Bryce Dallas Howard.
Is it Bryce Dallas Howard?
Yes. Dallas Bryce Howard.
BDH. BDH is that she's going to be in another film, We crave that. We're like, oh my God, the incredibly talented director and performer Ron Howard has progeny, and those progeny are now wanting to step into, like, by all means, feed us this entertainment, give us more of this. We want to hear what Bryce Dallas Howard.
Well, I'll give you 3 names really quick.
Give me 3 names,
and I want you to tell me if you can tell without looking at my notes, because I know you have them.
I do.
Mamie and Grace Gunner and Louisa Jacobson. Do those names sound familiar to you?
I didn't even know those were names. I was going to ask you, are you naming sandwiches? I don't know what that is.
So their names seem just kind of ambiguous if you just heard them. If you saw them, you'd be like, who do they look like? Who would you say is the reigning queen of Hollywood when it comes to films? Who is the shining star?
Oh, that's going to be Meryl Streep.
Yes. They are all 3 her daughters.
Okay, so there you go. And let me guess, they're all going into performance.
They are all actresses.
They're all actors.
They're all actors.
They're all actors.
And one of them looks exactly like her. I was like, oh my God. She
really?
looks just like freaking Meryl Streep.
And so, this goes back to your original question. Is it fair? Is it fair that, one of those actors is going to walk into... Oh my God, you're right. Jesus Christ. Is it fair that one of those actors is going to walk into an audition someday and may not necessarily be the best performer, or the one with the best resume, or the person that can most encapsulate the character that's being casted? Is it fair that they're likely going to get the role because in the back of their minds they're going, and they may not even be doing it consciously as casting directors. They may be sitting there saying, well, let's not take Meryl into consideration here. Maybe, and Meryl being the incredible person she is, she might even go to them and say, don't you dare consider me about this. But in the back of their minds, they might be thinking, even if it's not it could be a cash-driven unconscious decision or a performance-driven unconscious decision, but in the back of their minds, they might be thinking, we might get another Meryl Streep out of this. We might get a Meryl Streep, level of performance out of this. This is a good risk to take. Almost, and I hate using the word, but it's almost, eugenicism. This idea of, well, if the mother is that talented and can produce a lot of money, the daughter must be able to do it as well. So let's take this risk.
Well, one thing I will say, in my answer to that is I don't think it's fair to the other actors and actresses. I really don't think that if they're walking into a role, they're trying their hardest. They're gonna put on the show of their lives. But then in comes, I'm sorry, Mamie Gunner. If you walk in and you take that role from somebody else, I don't think that's necessarily fair. Just because Meryl Streep would be your mom. Now I will say, and I'm gonna ask you the question: do you think that it's fair to the Nepo babies that they have to deal with that?
I don't. And while you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, think about all the things we do outside of the film industry. Mm-hmm. The things that we do to try to limit the problems that we have with hiring. There was a study that was done and I don't remember the year, I don't remember the details about the study, but essentially what the study did was it sent out resumes with names on them. And the names were names that were traditionally white versus traditionally black names. And they just noted that they got more calls when the name was traditionally white, even though the resumes were identical. Okay?
We have a mutual friend that's done that.
Do we?
Yeah. His name is more Asian sounding, and they have not changed their first name legally, but on their resumes they did start putting a traditional white name, and
really?
immediately
that's true. Yes,
immediately got some hits.
Right. So what we've done in hiring practices with the advances in technology, what a lot of companies have started doing is when the resumes come through their system, the name is removed. So you're only looking at the resume itself. That. It's great, right? It's a way we can kind of do that. You can't do that in the film industry because you're literally casting based off of an audition.
Yeah,
you've got to take whether you're still in the dark ages and you're doing auditions in person, or whether you've got tapes coming in, right, or recordings coming in. You're gonna have to look at that person, and if you've been in the industry, you're probably gonna know who those people are. Mm-hmm. So it's gonna be impossible without some sort of advanced algorithm that starts making choices on who's the best performance, which is again it's subjective. So that's not really a thing you can program. You can't use that same technique to try to, get rid of all the biases, and in particular the Nepo bias.
Yeah. Well, I mean, power is a name in Hollywood, 100%. You're looking for bankable stars. You got your Johnny Depps. You have your Leonardo DiCaprio's, and those are Meryl Streeps.
Those are names that are going to bring you both. Like you said, power is a name in Hollywood. Those are all those names. They are going to get you revenue, and they are going to get you views.
Yeah.
in your film, and that's what it's all about.
And with Meryl Streep and Johnny Depp, they both have children that are actors. I mean, you got Lily Rose Depp, who is Johnny Depp's daughter, and then you have for the horde that Meryl Streep has brought out for everybody.
The horde.
The horde. The horde. Yes.
Is she a Hun? What's happening?
Like you just said, you can't just wipe the name out. So the name is going to have some type of power. And if that last name is a very strong name, it's going to get you there. Now, I do like that whenever certain actors do change their names. Like Nicolas Cage. He did change his last name. Still didn't work. Angelina Jolie. Last name is technically Voight.
Right, because she's John Voight's daughter.
Yeah.
Right, sure.
Maya Rudolph. She's Minnie Riperton's daughter.
I don't know who that is.
Loving you.
I love that all you had to do was do those two notes. And it's like, oh, yeah, her.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so she's Minnie Riperton's daughter. So, again, it's a singer instead of an actor. But, I mean, Steven Tyler's daughter, Liv Tyler, is also famous that way. But, sure. I mean, it's the last name that changes, which it makes you, really wonder, does that really help? Because Emilio Estevez, he changed his last name, but, again, it goes back to you're still Charlie Sheen's brother and Martin Sheen's son.
I don't know about you, but in the 90s, did you totally always know that about Emilio Estevez?
Yeah,
I did.
That was the fact. That was the fun fact.
It never went away. It was never like, oh, Emilio Estevez, and then somebody would be like, oh, he's Charlie Sheen's brother. Like, oh, really? Like, no, you always knew that was Martin Sheen's son and that he was related and he was Charlie Sheen's brother. You always knew it. You're right. It did literally nothing to change his name, to take his mother's name.
And I wonder if this is true, and I don't know if it's really going to be a big thing, but do you think that sometimes the actors, the sons and daughters of actors, they lean towards the parent that has the most star credit, for their names?
I have never considered that at all. Is that show your work? I'd love to hear this. I have no idea.
Do you know who Gwyneth Paltrow's mother is? I know you've seen her before.
I feel like I do know this, and I feel like I have heard this before, but you're going to have to remind me.
Blythe Danner.
Blythe Danner.
The name sounds unambiguous.
Sounds ambiguous.
So it sounds ambiguous, but you know her. She was in Meet the Parents. She was the mom. She was
right. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
She was in all of those movies.
She always plays a very June Cleaver type motherly role.
Yeah. She was in Tu Wong Fu, and she just played like somebody that was there. So.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, but I mean, you know who she is.
Yes, she's a very well-known performer in her own right. She's a very recognizable performer, let's say. Yeah. Obviously not well-known, because I didn't even know who the hell she was when you said her name.
But Gwyneth Paltrow's dad is Bruce Paltrow, who was he was an American television and film director, and he was really well-known in the community. So it's really, should she have been Gwyneth Danner to, kind of go along the acting credits that her mother had, or does she go with the more bankable name of Paltrow?
And I guess I can't really make it a determination off that, because neither of those names seem bankable to me. Now, within the industry, that may very well be the case, that Paltrow is a more profitable name, if you will, than Danner. But from my perspective, it's like, roll the fucking dice, I guess. I don't know.
But I'm just saying, I wonder if that's a thing. If you really just, you choose the parent that has, like, am I going to go with this? Like, Liv Tyler's name, I don't think was Liv Tyler. I think that she had a different name, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, and then took the Steve Tyler name as a...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, her and her sister.
And used that as somewhat of a catalyst to help her with her career?
Yeah, she's Liv Rundgren, I think was... Yeah.
Well, and that brings up a good question, too. Let's put ourselves in those shoes, okay? AJ and I are now brothers, and we are the sons of a famous actor. I don't know about you, but my parents always told me, use every advantage you can get.
Yeah.
Always, if you know a guy that's in a certain business and that guy can get you a job that pays really well, don't take it. Don't, use your connections. They're always telling us to, use our connections and network and meet people that can help you in your career. Is it necessarily wrong from the perspective of, you and I, AJ and Sean, as the now sons of this famous performer? Would it really be wrong for us to say
Richard Dreyfuss? That's who I want to be.
Okay, so
AJ Dreyfuss.
We are AJ and Sean Dreyfuss,
like
or we're AJ and Sean with our last names, but we both want to be performers. Is it really can we really be faulted for saying let's change our name to Dreyfuss, because that will get us that will open doors to us that would not have been open to us if we didn't use that name.
That's true.
So yeah, it's. And I don't know. It's just, I think it's the individual person has to kind of make that choice for themselves. We said Nick Cage tried to change his name to say I want to do this on my own, right? Mm-hmm. And I understand that some might want to do that, but I don't know about you. I think my parents would have told me, hey, if this name can get you further, use the name. Don't discount a name simply because you have this purist ideology that says I must do this all on my own. If your familial connections can help you in a country that demands more from our familial connections, then use it. Don't shy away from it. Go use the advantages that you have, because everyone else out there is probably going to be using the advantages they have.
I mean, the way that I think about it too is kind of odd. Is when you don't use it, that's weirder to me. Because, like Angelina Jolie, I get she has personal reasons on why she does not go by Angelina Jolie.
Sure, she has issues with her father, absolutely.
Yeah, but think about, like, Debbie Reynolds and Carrie Fisher.
That is a weird one to me.
Carrie Fisher did not use her mom's last name, and Debbie Reynolds was a bankable star.
She was. And I don't follow Carrie Fisher that closely, but I don't know of any major issue she had with her mother.
I actually don't know that either. That's something I'm going to have to research. Maybe we'll do a showcase, because Carrie Fisher was a interesting character.
She was interesting character, and she was in one of my favorite movies of all time, which of course was Drop Dead Fred. You thought I was going to say Star Wars.
I thought you were going to say Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Oh, that's right. She was the nun.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, God. She had so many great cameos / smaller bit parts. I mean, I think that's what I liked about Carrie Fisher. Despite the fact that she became a megastar in Star Wars, she never really was like, oh, well, I can only be casted. Like, no, she was totally willing to be the sidekick in Drop Dead Fred. She was totally willing to be, a nun and have a very odd interaction with Jay and Silent Bob.
It's the rules of the road.
It's the rules of the road, as George Carlin let us all know. But that's a great example. Is Carrie probably could have used her familial relationship to Debbie Reynolds to catapult and help her in her career. And she made a decision not to, and that's totally fine. And I guess that's where I'm at, is from the perspective of the individual, Nepo baby. I almost hate the term Nepo baby.
No, because Jamie Lee Curtis literally just used it. She called herself a Nepo baby at the SAG. Yeah, at the SAG Awards.
Oh, okay, well then Nepo baby it is.
She explained how the cycle thing happened. She was a Nepo baby. She got hired on to Operation Petticoat because of her dad, Tony Curtis, and she totally used that. Got fired from Operation Petticoat, and then landed it was some small budget role in this movie called it's Halloween or something like that.
I'm not sure I'm familiar.
Yeah. So it's this movie never really became anything.
Is it an independent film?
Yeah, it's very independent. It's at the True False Festival.
For anybody not familiar, True False is a documentary film festival that takes place in Columbia, Missouri. Really great film festival if you ever get a chance to go.
With short films as well.
It does everything. It's not short documentary films. Yeah. It's not just short films in general. It's all documentary. Now, I will say, occasionally at True False, they do kind of, I don't know why we're going into this, but they do occasionally allow for things that can be a little bit more crossing the line. So the movie that we talked about, was it Boy?
Yeah.
Where, they literally took the kid and just continued to film him over the course of, I think, 16 years, so that we literally watched this kid grow up through the film. That was actually that was played at True False.
Really?
So yeah, because the justification from the festival coordinators was, while this isn't actually a documentary, because it wasn't a documentary, it was there was a narrative behind it. We weren't actually learning about that boy himself. He was just playing a role, and they just decided to use the same boy through 16 years to make the film. There was an element of, realism there that they believed warranted its inclusion in True False, because, it was so real to say, we're going to use the same actor, the same child. We're not going to do, Anakin Skywalker and have, a kid playing him when he's young and then a totally different guy playing him as an adult. We're going to have the same kid as, 5 and then 10 and then, 14 and then I think 17 was the last age. We're going to have that same kid. So there's this huge level of realism that took a lot of time and patience to create for this film. And they used all the same actors, obviously. What is her name? Boyhood, not boy. Boyhood. Thank you. Sorry.
Patricia
Arquette. Another Nepo baby.
Yeah.
You can't get away from them. They're fucking everywhere.
Well, you brought it back. So one thing that's kind of brought up, and it's just a fun little tidbit. We're not going to spend too much time on this, but when is the familial connection so distant that it's not considered nepotism? Because I know one for sure that I just found out today. I was like, that's not nepotism. Mike Coulter is second cousin to Viola Davis.
Who's Mike Coulter?
He was in Luke Cage. He was Luke Cage.
Oh God, I love that guy.
Yeah, he's Viola Davis's cousin. I never knew that.
I'm trying to think what else he's been in, because I knew him in Luke Cage, obviously, but he's definitely got some bigger roles.
He's got bigger. That's just the most recognizable one. That's why I was like, hey,
because obviously he is the title character.
Star.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Second cousin. Well, I don't know, because you've been to my family events.
Yeah.
So think about.
I would never think that any of your second cousins or your cousins or
But that's just it. Think about how close I am with some of my second cousins at those family events. If I were in the film industry, or hell, even in my current industry, if I was able to, do something to help them get a leg up in an interview, you're goddamn right I'm going to do it. And I guess that's why I don't object necessarily to nepotism. Do I think it's necessarily fair sometimes? No. But I also want to be able to offer people that I know and love, opportunities that maybe they wouldn't be able to get otherwise. So, if I was
but if you offered your fourth cousin a job, I don't think they'd be like, oh yeah, this is Sean's fourth cousin. Yeah, let's do that.
Right. But that's what I'm saying is it's easy for us to, because simply the number fourth or second cousin, it's easy to go, well, that's far enough removed. It's not really nepotism. But if they're close, even if the familial tie, quote unquote, isn't close, but they are close because of that familial tie. And I know that's kind of a weird juxtaposition, but, second cousin isn't a close cousin, quote unquote. But you've been, coming to my family or my family events, you know that a second cousin to me would actually be a very close relationship. So that person wouldn't have gotten that had they not been related to me.
But I think that the problem, though, is you have to have an incredibly bankable name for this to really work.
Okay, so you're really juxtaposing this against the idea of the bankable name, not necessarily just the familial tie.
Yeah, so it's more like, hey, it's not just because they're family. It's like, how did this really get you to where you are? You have to have a bankable name, because I don't think like party goer number 2 who's related to somebody that ended up serving the chips at the catering table on a movie. I don't think that necessarily would be nepotism, because I mean, it kind of is, but I mean...
Well, let's go back to the example you were using. You said Viola Davis. Viola Davis.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I'm going to talk today. I swear I am. And what was...
Mike Coulter?
Mike Coulter. Coulter. Okay. So, no, the name recognition, definitely not there. Obviously, nobody is hearing Mike Coulter and thinking Viola Davis. I had no idea about the familial connection. But Viola Davis, obviously, older than Mike Coulter. Mm-hmm. Her career has spanned decades.
Yeah.
And Mike Coulter, I'd say, probably hasn't been around as long as Viola Davis in the entertainment industry. So Mike Coulter goes on his first audition, and Viola Davis gives somebody a call and says, "Hey, my cousin," and she probably, she's not going to say second cousin. I would never say that. My cousin Mike, he just auditioned. FYI, I think he'd be really great for the role. And if you need any more information or anything, hey, feel free to reach out to me. And this casting director's like, holy fuck, I just got a call from Viola Davis.
But Viola Davis's name had only recently, I would say in the past maybe 20 years, is something that you could use as a bankable name.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is moving away from the idea of the bankable name, just having the connection, just having somebody, because like we said, it's dynasties.
But you would have to have the bankable name to really establish a dynasty, or establish, like, I don't know. The way I'm thinking about it is this: if your name is not bankable, and your brother or your sister auditions for like a lead role or even like a secondary role in a movie, if your name's not bankable, why would they choose this person? So it doesn't fall in your favor.
Right, but I think it goes back to what when we in the very beginning we talked about Francis Ford Coppola, right? Well, that's Frank's nephew.
Yeah,
but that's Frank's nephew. Now they're not doing it because we're going to make money off of Francis Ford Coppola's name, but potentially they might have been thinking, well, if you ever want to work with Frank, you better put his nephew in this movie. Same thing with Viola Davis and Mike Coulter. They, Viola gives a call, or they just happen to know that they're related. They might be thinking, we've got these two performers, right? We've got Mike Coulter, and we've got, unknown guy that we're never going to hear about because he doesn't have the same connections. And they're looking at those two and they're going, yeah, there's this guy, but did you know this guy's related to Viola Davis? I'm just saying, like, if we ever want to cast Viola Davis in something, if we ever want to work with her, if we ever want to, be able to ride those coattails, we better cast this guy. And they're not, in that case, they're not thinking about the marketability of the name. They're thinking about future projects that they might be screwing themselves out of if they don't cast the person that's related to the other famous person.
I think I may have given the wrong impression what I was talking about. What I was trying to say is that it's the star themselves, not necessarily their name, that really gets you there.
And that's fine. I'm more thinking like at the beginnings of someone's career that's kind of helping them get their footing. You've got two quote unquote unknowns. Mm-hmm. You've got Michael Coulter.
Yeah, Coulter.
Mike Coulter and other unknown guy. And neither of them are really known yet. This is their first audition, or maybe they've been in a couple of things, but this is going to be maybe their first feature film, something that's really going to, put them in the spotlight. And they're deciding between these two. And whether consciously or subconsciously, they're thinking, well, that person's related to Viola Davis. They have at least some cred already in terms of a familial relation, or we may want to work with Viola Davis someday, so we better cast this person. They're thinking, there's thinking that goes into that, says, let's pick this person over this person, even if this other person's performance was better.
Well, I mean, at that point, you're still going by a bankable star, because, the same scenario. I'm going to give you two scenarios right now.
Give me a scenario.
So you have, let's say, Todd McKinney, related to Bill McKinney. And then you have...
I know neither of those people.
Mm-hmm, see? And then you have another guy, same suitable role, and like, hey, he's related to Bill McKinney.
Again, I don't know who any of these people are.
Exactly. Bill McKinney was a sadistic mountain man in Deliverance.
Okay, yeah, but you're using names that I don't even know.
That's what I'm saying.
Viola Davis.
That's what I'm saying, though. You're going by the name and you're going by the bankable star. I don't think if it doesn't really apply.
You're suggesting that with Mike Coulter, there is a bankable name attached somewhere.
To him. It's not necessarily his
it's
name.
It's not his name yet.
You're using the bankable
that.
part of his,
right.
Like the person that would be the...
Well, he isn't.
Yeah,
we're kind of suggesting that he might go in because he's a second cousin, doesn't have the same last name. He's not, going, oh, and by the way, I'm Viola Davis' second cousin. I don't know if you know. Like, we're assuming he's not doing that.
Yeah.
We're assuming that on the part of the casting team that they are going... that guy's related to Viola Davis.
And I guess that's where my point comes into it. It doesn't really matter if the person they're relating to maybe works in Hollywood, but is not well known at all.
Well, I guess I'm thinking of the scenario kind of like when I said, I've worked at places where so-and-so knows so-and-so. The casting director is, because it's never just, when they say casting director, there's a reason why we say casting director, because they're directing a team that does the casting. Yeah. It's not just this one person going out there and finding the talent for a particular project. It's a whole team behind this. So using what was that example you used? The Deliverance guy, Bill
McKinney.
Bill McKinney. So the casting director's in there, and let's say the casting director has no idea who Bill McKinney is, but the son, who was it, of Bill McKinney?
He's not really a son. There's just a random name, but Tom McKinney.
Tom McKinney. So Tom McKinney comes in. He's related to Bill McKinney.
He's just a guy I threw in. There's a name I threw in there.
And while there isn't a lot of name recognition, at least for me, for Bill or Tom McKinney, one of the members of the team comes in, or a director, or one of the executive producers comes in and says, hey, so I understand you had Tom McKinney in for that? Yeah, let's go ahead and cast him. Why? Not because there's name recognition, but because that executive producer or that member of the casting team at one point worked with Bill McKinney and was like, "Oh, this is Bill McKinney." Because that's what I'm thinking of is like, there's no name recognition for Sean Kelly at the job that I work at, but shit, no last names.
Yeah.
There's no name recognition for Sean at the job that I work at, but if my manager is making a hiring decision and my nephew is up for the job, I can go to him and say, hey, so I heard you got so-and-so come in and wow, we've been talking about film so much, I forgot what the word is when you apply for apply. That's it. Apply for a job.
You don't know.
I was thinking
what's
audition?
The number for 911? How do I know? That's
audition.
What is that?
I was because my brain was going. You had. I heard you had somebody come in and audition for this job. Like that's not how that works. Apply. So I heard you had so and so apply for the job. I just want to let you know I can vouch for them. I think they'll be a great fit. It's not name recognition. It's not because they're like, oh, Sean's a big name in the industry that he works in. It's that I'm right there and I can kind of make that push.
So I guess what we're really trying to say, I'm trying to say with that is that if you really want it to be a big benefit, you have to have a bigger name.
Oh no, absolutely. I'll definitely say there's scale here. Scale of, your last name is Hanks. God, what is Tom Hanks' son's name?
It starts with the C, I think. Colin Hanks?
Colin Hanks, thank you. Your last name, your name is Colin Hanks. Definitely going to be bigger than, what was it, Bill Billingsley?
McKinney?
McKinney, sure. Freaking Irish name, and I can't keep it in my goddamn head. Obviously, big difference between Tom Hanks and Bill McKinney, right? But there's a scale there, a scale of this name is so recognizable to not put Colin Hanks in this film would be the stupidest fucking move ever because that's gonna get us money simply because he is a Hanks. Yeah. Versus Bill McKinney has worked in the industry, so he knows people know him. So when his son Tom is going in, there is still a distinct advantage there because the people that have worked with Bill in the past are going, oh, I think I worked with Tom's dad. Good people. Let's go ahead and cast Tom in this. Even though there was somebody else in there who's definitely more suited for the role. Bill has worked with these people. People know Bill. People like Bill, and they're thinking, "Yeah, let's give Bill's kid a chance. I'm sure he'll do a fine job, and you know,
it's still a boon regardless.
Yeah, it's still a help. But you're right. You're absolutely right. It's definitely there's definitely a stark difference between, oh sure, that's Bill's kid, and that's Tom Hanks' fucking son. Why in God's name isn't he already in a fucking contract?
I mean, I'm totally guilty of that too, because I'm not gonna lie. When the Mini Streaks of Newark came out, and they said that Michael Gandolfini was gonna be in there, and I was like, James Gandolfini's son.
James Gandolfini's son.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I'm fucking watching this.
You're fucking right. Yeah, like now I'm gonna fucking watch it. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we are definitely. Let's be honest, we are definitely guilty. Part of the problem. Because the reason they're going, well, yes, fucking cast Michael Gandolfini. What are you, nuts? Get his ass in the fucking role. They're doing it because they know the Sean and AJs out there are going to go, Michael Gandolfini? Is that James Gandolfini's son? Ooh, put it in my queue.
Put it in my queue. I guess the last question that I have here is, can the nepotism in Hollywood actually be a hindrance or negatively impact the careers of the other people in that family? Like, that it's actually supposed to be a part of it. So, like, if you are like James Franco and his brother.
I was going to use a really fucked up example.
Or Dave and Tom, sorry.
Going back to our discussion of art versus the artist, you walk into an audition with the name Spacey right now.
Ooh.
That's probably not going to go well. You walk in with the name Weinstein right now, probably not going to serve you well. You're going to get the exact opposite problem of, sorry, your name is toxic right now. You're almost going to have to change your name and hope to God that the name change alone will be enough for a casting director or, you know, somebody who's hiring for maybe another role within film, whether it's, you know, you're going to be in the production side or the cinematography side. You're going to have to hope to God that they're going to be able to go, okay, I know who you actually are, but you've changed your name, and I think you'll be able to fly under the radar, because just like it's a sure bet to say, put Michael Gandolfini in the fucking film, it could also be suicide to say, sure, let's hire Harvey Weinstein's son to do this project.
I mean, the way I think about it too is it comes back around, like, a perfect example of this is Gary Busey and Jake Busey. In the early 90s, when Gary Busey's career was still, you know, it was still rocking.
Huge, right.
Yeah, because, you know, he did the Buddy Holly story, and then he was also in
Point Break.
Under Siege.
Oh, God, he was Under Siege. I forgot.
He was I think was it Under Siege 2 or was it Under Siege?
It was Under Siege. He was, yeah, because he was
the captain or something like that. Not the captain. I forget what his actual role is.
Well, he was like the third officer and then became the captain, quote unquote, because the other two were murdered by Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, I just remember him being in a dress and being like, oh, this is odd.
That was the same reaction I had to Gary Busey in a dress.
Well, it was just Gary Busey. I have no qualms with any person being in a dress aside from Gary Busey, because
Gary Busey is quite he's quite Gary Busey. I mean, we can use that as an adjective. That's
and like I said though, in the 90s though, we were using the star credit of the Busey name. But then as Gary Busey kind of fell off there for a while, because he went
a little off the deep end.
He went off the deep end. Do you really hear anything about Jake Busey anymore?
Oh, what did I watch? I just watched something recently. I think it might have been one of the films that we reviewed. It might have been no, it wasn't Blank Man. He was in something, and I was like, oh hey, it's Jake Busey. That's great. Oh, you know what? I think he was in an episode of Psych. That's what it was. I think he was in an episode of Psych, and I was like, oh hey, Jake Busey, awesome. No, the last thing I really remember Jake Busey being in that wasn't, you know, a bit role on a television show like Psych was Contact. Was the last thing I remember him from. I'm sure he did things after that, but that's the last thing I remember was Contact with Jodie Foster.
The last big thing I remember him in, like that I remember being like, oh my God, he looks just like his dad, was Starship Troopers.
Oh shit, was that before or after?
That was after.
Yeah, that was after Contact. Yeah, and so that was, even though I would put Starship Troopers into one of those categories of films that were never intended to do great, but it kind of became a cult classic, interestingly enough. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was definitely still, I'd say we were still in Busey, a little bit of Busey mania there. Yeah. I don't want to say mania, it was never like that. But we were still
kind of now, but
we were still in Busey favoritism, let's say that. But I think one of the most recent things I watched Jake Busey in was this god-awful horror film that my wife and I actually had to turn off because it was just so bad. It was like, basically it was like Nazis were frozen or had existed all along, and they were hiding out in Antarctica, but they were
called Nazis at the Center of the Earth.
Is that what it was?
I think so. I've seen this fucking
and
movie before.
Does it have Jake Busey in it as a scientist?
Yeah, it does.
That's the one. Yeah. Oh my god, so fucking bad.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't even get through it all because it was so bad. And I love a bad horror film, but this one, it was just like, okay, now you're just pushing my fucking buttons.
I mean, he was also an Identity, though. I mean, now we're just talking about Jake Busey. That's okay because I love Jake Busey.
Talking about Jake Busey
because he was an Identity as well. He was the crazy guy. Not the crazy guy. He was the.
Remind me, which one's Identity?
Identity was the one where you're going through and you really don't know who the killer is.
Oh yeah, that fucking narrow.
They're at a motel and it's got John Cusack.
Okay. And spoiler alert, big spoiler alert in case you haven't seen Identity. Is this the one where it turns out they're all actually personalities?
Yeah.
In the or not escaped yet, but near the end he's escaped.
Yeah, with the guy with the weird eyes.
Yeah, the weird eyes. Yeah, but it essentially this whole thing takes place, and you're thinking these are all just independent and individual characters, but they're actually
just
all
killing off.
Yeah, they're all actually personalities within an insane murderer's head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I like this little stroll we took from Nepotism to just be like, no, let's just talk about Jake Busey now.
Because honestly, I like Jake Busey.
Yeah, I do.
It was weird because that film that he was in, it seemed like his acting was really bad, and this kind of goes into a whole different thing that I have about. It really doesn't matter how good or how bad a performer is if they don't have a good director. It's the same thing with your job and my job. If we don't have a good manager, we're not going to perform to our best. And I think a great example of that. So Jake Busey, obviously, we've seen him do great performances. He's done good performance. Yeah. But then there was that horror movie where he just seems so awkward and out of place. It's not because he's a bad performer. It's because it was a shit movie with a bad director. And
Tom Hanks has done bad movies before, and it's not his fault.
Exactly. And I usually think of Jennifer Lopez in, was it Hustlers, I think is the movie?
Was it Jiggly or was it Hustlers?
I think it was Hustlers.
She did a couple of really bad ones.
No, I was going to say this is a good one.
Oh, okay.
So I think it was called Hustlers, if I remember correctly. But it's basically a film about these women. Yeah, I think it was Hustlers. These women that were exotic dancers that started to drug the men that were coming in, and then use those men to buy them a bunch of stuff. Oh, okay. Right? And I think it's based on a true story. But her performance in it is outstanding. And we've seen her in other performances where it's like, it's fine. I guess she did okay. Made in Manhattan or really anything she was in the 90s, right?
Enough is the good one.
Enough is a great way. Another example of.
We are so off the fucking deep end.
We are so off the deep end. How the fuck? Yeah, okay.
Let's get Jennifer Lopez.
For God's sakes, get me back on track with Nepotism. I will go down the fucking.
We'll talk about JLo at another time. But
I'll be happy to talk about JLo because she's a great performer. But if you put her in a shit role, she's going to give a shit, or if you put her in a shit role with a bad director, you're not going to get the top performance that you can get out of her.
But think about what this is doing. The Nepotism has created this conversation we're having.
That's true.
It started with Jake Busey being like, "Oh, Jake Busey is this and this and this." It leads to other conversations, and it's just because of the name that was tied to it that now we're talking about.
That's true.
So this is just another thing. Nepotism just
look what nepotism has done to us.
Yeah, we're here.
Look at us.
So. Guys, I want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think that nepotism? Do you think that nepotism is really affecting Hollywood in a negative aspect? Do you really not care about it? Is it interesting? Do you think it's fair to other people that are trying to make it into the industry that they don't have that familial tie to fall back on? That's just really what I want to know.
Well, speaking of nepotism, our music is created by Augusto Denise, logo by Arpon Design, mixing and editing by IPTT Studios.
Before I do my spiel, what the fuck does that have to do with nepotism?
Like, I'm giving a shout out to those people. Like, they have some sort. Okay. It's not really nepotism, so it's not familial, but we know them because they, provided a service for us by creating our music and our design. Oh. And so I'm giving them a plug at the end of every episode. So they might garner some attention.
Shut the fuck
something. Up. Stop me now, or I'll keep fucking talking. The words just keep coming, and I don't know what to do now.
And we want to hear from you and your own slice of toast. Maybe cut from the same loaf of bread, so you have multiple slices of toast from the same bread, because that's how nepotism works. You see how the fuck I did that? And we want to hear from you in your own slice of toast. Tell us about the films you think we and others should see, actors to showcase, or topics to discuss. You can reach us on Instagram at IPTT_podcast, email us directly at IPTTpodcast@gmail.com, or interact with us directly through the Spotify app.
And just remember, by actually listening to our show, you're family, and that will help you get jobs in the future. So make sure you're following.
You can always get more toast. God damn it, we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for listening.